All right, welcome everyone. I'm so excited you're here today for the Women Speakers Association Women of Influence show. And if you have a message or a body of work that you want to share in a really big way, you know that you're born to make a difference, you're a game changer or a change maker or trailblazer, you are in the perfect place. And as you're logging in today and you're joining in the conversation, be sure to let us know your name, where you're calling in from, and if you are already a WSA member. And we have 2 levels of membership. I'll share a little bit more about that later. Now, if you're a new friend and you're not familiar with WSA, WSA is the go-to place for innovative leaders, change agents, and women with a message. We've basically created a community to connect, collaborate, and grow your visibility worldwide in order to help you fulfill your mission. So if you're not yet a member and you'd like to explore our community and be part of a supportive, collaborative, and really active community of speakers and messengers, go over to joinwsa.com, and that's an opportunity for you to get a free associate membership. Now, if we haven't met yet, I'm Melanie Benson, and I'm one of the executive team leaders at Women Speakers Association. And actually, I'm one of the original 4 founding members, which just tells you how much I love the idea of getting our messages out in a big way. And in my own business, I'm a revenue strategist, and I'm an evolution mentor for entrepreneurs that are purpose-driven to help them expand their influence and income in an aligned and sustainable way. And you can find out more about me at melaniebenson.com. But I have to tell you, I am so excited for today's show. I have the great honor of being the host of the Women of Influence show. And often I'm introducing somebody who's really special to my heart. And so I get to introduce Dr. Leyden to you today. Now, Lori is an internationally known trauma healing expert. She's a transformational leader and a mentor. And she serves trauma survivors as well as heart-centered healers, teachers, coaches, social entrepreneurs, and change makers who are committed to their own healing and yearn for more meaning and impact in their lives, their work, and truly in our world. And people who mentor with Lori learn how to live in grace with gratitude, love, joy, and wonder as they discover more of their heart's unique calling and power to inspire others to do the same. Now, I want to share just a little bit about her journey here. I know we'll get into it more, but I had the great privilege of seeing Lori speak earlier this year, or actually, I guess it was last year. And I was really moved by her story and what she has said yes to doing in this world. And so I wanted to share a little bit about that. Lori had a near-death experience. And through that, she received a transformational spiritual healing practice called the Grace Process. And this work has led her across the world to Rwanda and right here to the US and to the Sandy Hook, Connecticut community to help people who've been traumatized by something that's happened in their community or in their life and really achieve a state of grace. And doing that through a creative partnership that she's been called to collaborate with others to help heal our world. And it moved me so much. We've ended up doing some work together to help her really be able to figure out how to get it out in a bigger way. And I've truly have been profoundly impacted over and over and over again by how Lori shows up with grace and with power and this just conviction that this work is going to help heal the world. So Lori, thanks so much for saying yes to joining us on the show today.
Absolutely, Melanie. And it's really such an honor to be considered an influencer. It wasn't until you asked me to be on the show that I really considered what that meant to me. So it's a joy, it's an honor, and of course, our sisterhood is very important to spreading the word about this work.
Yes, I agree. Oh, thank you. I know someone's just experimenting with the connection here, so we're going to lock the seats, but we are going to open up for Q&A in a little bit. So we'd love to hear your questions. I'll let you know when we're going to get there. But first, I just want to dig into some things with Lori that I think you might be curious about too. And first of all, I just want to dig right into this idea of being an influencer. And I love that you said, I didn't realize how much of an influencer I was until I invited you to the show. But truly, I look at what you're doing and I look at the ripples that you're creating by just getting the grace process out there in the world. So how are you influencing others with this work?
Well, you mentioned my near-death experience, and we can get into that, but I made a decision at that point to follow my heart wherever it led me. And in doing that, I moved from Rhode Island to Santa Barbara. I received the call to Rwanda and then to Newtown to work with the survivors of the Sandy Hook Elementary School tragedy. And I am part of a organization called the Tapping Solution, which has a field of 500,000 people who are into emotional freedom technique / tapping, which is the trauma healing technique I use. So as I reflect on this, I realize that I actually am influencing a lot of people, but it's just because of my joy and my passion. And it's so delightful to have people join and feel connected with the message that we need to heal our own deepest wounds first. So I have a wide community of thousands of people in Rwanda and hundreds of people in Newtown, and then these hundreds of thousands in the tapping world that I work with to create global healing.
Yeah. And, tapping's one of those modalities that I don't have a ton of experience with. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later, because I think other people might be curious how tapping can actually liberate you from wounds and fears and pain and traumas that might be holding you back. Let's talk first, though, about this innovative program in the field of humanitarian aid that you've created called Project Light. I want to help everybody understand how you saying yes to this journey has actually started to just take on a life of its own and get really, I don't want to say the word viral because it's not viral, but it's contagious.
Yeah, thank you. Gosh, there's so much backstory to it. But just to say that my time in Rwanda with working with orphan genocide survivors, instead of breaking my heart, it breaks my heart open to what's possible. And I would come back from each trip and I talk about, the jet lag is like 9 hours and it takes quite a while. And I would sit on my purple couch at 3 a.m. in the morning, not knowing how to deal with the jet lag. And I would ask, I was yearning for what more can I do than just the trauma healing? Because young people who are traumatized, you can help them heal the trauma, but if they continue to live in poverty with no bright future, they're going to continue to be re-traumatized. So I say that I am the conduit for this new form of humanitarian aid that actually combines trauma healing with heart-centered leadership, opportunities for economic sustainability, conflict transformation, and community building. So up to now, humanitarian aid focuses either on education or entrepreneurship or various pieces to the puzzle, but without the trauma healing piece, that's really the glue that ties it all together. And, that I became the conduit for that concept in 2009. And now I am finding organizations around the world that actually have the same notion that I had in 2009. How is that possible? It's like a crazy miracle. And now I'm connecting with them and we're moving forward to do this work.
Yes, so it's almost like when you really step fully in and you say, yes, I will do this work. I will get this work out. I will be a conduit. I call it the quickening. There's this quickening that happens where you start getting aligned and tuned into other people who can either help further your goals or can help open doors, or maybe even are already on that same path. And by collaborating and co-creating together, it makes the journey go faster. And I think that's what you're saying is, when you say yes, when you really become that influential being, you don't have to do it alone.
Well, and I have to me, a funny story about that, which is, I would come back again from Rwanda and think, what is the more thing that I can do? And I thought, well, the thought leaders of our time, like Jean Houston and Barbara Marx Hubbard, I'm going to tell them about this and they'll fix it. They'll do it because they have the tools and the resources to do it. And as I was dozing at 3 a.m. on the couch, the words came into my head, "You are the one you've been waiting for." And I was like, no,
not me.
No, I want someone else to do it. And yet I've had the privilege of meeting both Jean and Barbara, and they have encouraged me and mentored me to continue to say yes. And, we can feel kind of crazy with these ideas, but that's why it's so important to have a tribe like the Women's Speakers Association, where people are out there doing great things, but we need a little support because most of the time we may be doing it on our own,
Yeah, and I'm also hearing in between the lines that you didn't plan this. Like, this wasn't this big thing that you had orchestrated. You're listening to what has to happen next in order to fulfill your destiny and to really do the work that you're passionate about. And so you say yes, and then the magic happens, and you're shown what's next in the path, right?
It is so true, and but also to say that I think people need to look at the stepping stones in their life, the important defining moments, because certainly what led me to this path is very apparent to me now. It was not apparent to me early on. But as someone who is a survivor of childhood trauma, I set my passion on helping others heal from trauma in more elegant and graceful ways. And as a result of my own experience and everything that I've experienced in my life led me to this point, which is fascinating in itself. But I think this is something I would encourage other people to do, is look at the stepping stones in their lives, look at the defining moments. And as we piece that together, we find out what our destiny is.
Yes. And let's just dig a little bit deeper into your own personal journey for a minute, and how it's connected to Project Light and the call to serve in Rwanda and the call to help, the community members of Sandy Hook really heal from such a traumatic experience. Like, let's dig deeper. I think our audience would like to know, how is this shaping your journey?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we have two choices in life. We can look at the nightmare of what this life is about, or we can look at the dream. And certainly there are many things happening right now that would make us move toward the nightmare, but I always am able to see the miracles out of tragedy. My own journey was that I experienced some significant trauma at the age of 12. My protector, my Nana, was dying. My mom was pregnant with my youngest sister. I was the oldest of soon to be 4 siblings. And I went to my parish priest for some solace, and unfortunately experienced some sexual abuse there. And I mention this not to go deep into the trauma, but to understand that my own life experience led me to this place. And so what did I want most when I was 12 years old? I wanted to be seen. I wanted to be heard. I wanted to know that I mattered. I wanted to have a bright future. I wanted to be rescued. I wanted to love and be loved. And there was a moment, flash forward to 2007, when I was working with 100 orphan head of households, where I was communicating with these young people who were genocide survivors, given 2 to 6 other young children to raise at the age that I was at 12. And I realized in this moment of grace that we shared something very important together. I was, given my 4 siblings to raise for 2 years at the age of 12. And here I had 100 of these orphan head of households who were doing the same thing. And as we shared our stories, this moment of grace just opened up, where I was so grateful for everything I had experienced, because I knew it led me here. Certainly my trauma was not as extreme as theirs, but that connected us. And they said to me, please go back and tell our stories, and don't forget us, and please come back. And I said, yes. And then I said, how am I going to do that? As you know, I've been going back every year since 2007. And that was the beginning, the first time I said yes. And that's kind of where the journey has led me now.
Yeah. It takes a lot of courage to say yes and not know the steps behind it. And I think as each of us own our influence and own our impact and own, our ability to transform and be a catalyst in whatever form that takes, one of the keys to really embracing fully that gift is to know that you can say yes and you don't have to know how. And I love that you exhibit that on all levels. I watch you do that over and over, and it's truly profoundly powerful to watch you say yes. Because I've even given you a couple of challenges along the way, like, can you step into this? And you're like, okay, yes. and it does take courage. I want to honor that. You are a very courageous woman.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did not, something I think that's also important for our listeners is that I did not honor the courage that I had. And if we do not honor our gifts and our talents, we will not be prepared for the next step. And so it took Jean Houston. I was attending one of her workshops, and she was talking about the myth of the Wizard of Us and the Wizard of Oz. And I was completely unprepared for this. She was going to address the Cowardly Lion and courage. And she stood up and said, and now Lori Leyden will tell us about courage. I was completely thrown off. I was not prepared, but I had to own in that moment that if I gave that skill and that talent to my heart instead of my ego that was telling me, oh no, be humble, be, falsely humble, really. When I gave it to my heart, I realized I do need courage for every step that follows. So that was a defining moment for me. And I want to encourage other people to look at what their gifts and talents are and honor them and not play them down and not play small.
Yeah, well said. I love that. I want to welcome so many new members to our audience right now that are here with us live. I'm so excited that you're here. This is such a beautiful experience of really embracing influence today. Go ahead and just give us a little shout out in the live chat on the right. We'd love to know you're here. I will be opening up with Lori for questions and answers or Q&A session in a few minutes. So just know we're really excited to hear from you. But I just wanted to acknowledge that you're here. And if you're new to Blab, you may or may not know that on the left side of your screen, there's a little box that says share last 30 seconds. So when you hear something that's inspiring you and has really moved you, and or you just want to share this with your community, you can click that button and share it with either your Twitter and or your Facebook community and invite them to come join us here. So Lori, let's just talk a little bit about the grace process and what that is and how it has such an impact on the people who either need to heal or need to maybe even open up their heart and maybe get some blocks out of the way that are keeping them from really stepping fully into their purpose.
As you mentioned, I had this near-death experience, and after that, I felt like a secret chamber in my heart opened. Something really profound happened at that point, and I always wanted to be the conduit for how can we help people heal as gracefully and elegantly as possible. And I had personally explored every healing technique known to man, including like going to shamans and having pins put in me and crazy stuff. I would do anything to heal myself. And in a series of deep meditations after the near-death experience, I received this formula, which I call the grace process. And I remember coming out of the meditation saying, I'm either really full of crap, that's not the word I used, or I'm really onto something here. So the formula is that we use sacred choice first. We set an intention for what we want to heal or receive. And then we look at all the judgments that we have about that. We look at what needs forgiveness, including myself, another person, or the circumstance we find ourselves in. And once we work through the judgments and open to forgiveness, this is the pivot point where we can now reside in our hearts. And it's the heart that is going to allow us to have the most profound healing. So then we work with the energies of gratitude, love, joy, and wonder to really activate our prefrontal cortex and our hearts to literally bring in what is the healing, what is the resource, what is the miracle that is going to help me on the next part of my journey. So the grace process is a simple formula, and I talk about how we are transcending the ego when we look at judgment and forgiveness. And then we are in our heart resonance in this place of gratitude, love, joy, and wonder, which is the attractor, the emotions, the resonance field that will allow us to connect with what I call the divine one heart. So it's a simple formula, but putting it into practice.
It is the simple things that are often the most challenging for us to do, because it actually means we got to get out of our own way. And we have to really, truly, deeply connect with our truth.
Right, right.
And surrender the ego and surrender attachment, right? Because if you were attached to your journey looking a certain way, you would never have fully embraced what you were meant to do.
No way. No way.
And you wouldn't have met all the people and been in this, what I call that quickening process. And we would never have met you know, there's just so many things that would not have unfolded. So I want to just say to each of you, as you're listening in today, think about for a minute, just really be with, how often are you truly connecting with your truth? You're getting quiet. You're listening to that part of you that has something really extraordinary to create. And then how often are you actually just kind of in that constant motion that keeps you busy and maybe disconnected from your truth? So something to explore. And again, when we get into some Q&A time with Lori, there may be some opportunity to ask questions about that process. So Lori, the process is simple, but profoundly impactful. And it takes being conscious and committing to a practice.
Yeah, and what I would say to people, and you know, when the first year I was in Rwanda in 2007, I did a lot of preparation, not with my skills and my PhD and my, you know, tools, but I looked into the heart of myself, into the dark shadow of, you know, where is the Hitler in me? Where is the person? Could I sit in front of someone who had murdered 100 people? Could I sit in front of a widow who had experienced the worst of human tragedies and these orphans that I speak about? And it was in that work that I truly prepared myself to be fully present in my heart. And to be able to, you know, I met hundreds and hundreds of people that there was really nothing I could do. I could not fix their medical condition. I could not feed them. I could not adopt them. I didn't have the money to fix all the problems, but I could be fully present in my heart and let them know that they were seen and heard and that they mattered. And I found that that was the most important gift I could give them. That was the authenticity. That was the realness, when my ego would have pulled me out of the situation and made me not present and made me want to fix something or do something or be a hero or something, when in fact, just simply being fully present was enough. And so this grace process is really about that. And then the miracles that come from that are so profound because I am receiving just as much as I'm giving in the moment. And in that sweet spot in the middle of the infinity circuit, there's only love, and we are all transformed.
Yeah. You know, as I'm listening to you talk, I'm just wondering how fear plays into this for you. And do you have to face fears as you're walking this journey and stretching and, you know, creating things in the moment that you have no idea you're supposed to create? Because I know it would be for me.
Of course. And so what I've learned, and absolutely there's fear. It's fear about, you know, where is the fundraising coming from? And do I really know what I'm talking about? And who am I to engage in this work? And why am I being called? But when I am fully present in the moment and I ask that question and I take my ego out of it, I keep saying yes. Now, again, it's the taking the ego out of it. And like anyone, I mean, it looks really great on the surface. My success perhaps seems like a straight shot forward, but when I'm sitting on my little purple couch at 3 a.m. wondering how the next phase is going to unfold, I have to deal with that. And I use the grace process to deal with that.
I love it. And the reason I bring up fear is because I think fear is often one of the biggest derailers. We get into the fear, how's it going to work? Or, how, what are people going to think? Or how am I going to get the money together? Oftentimes how is a big part of fear. And just knowing that people who are maybe 5 or 10 steps ahead of you in how you're getting your work out there in the world, and knowing they're dealing with the same things, they're just using different tools. Right. And in this case, Lori uses the grace process. And, I know we'll talk more about how someone can use the grace process in their own life in a little bit. But I just want each and every one of us to get, as we're becoming greater influencers and we're really taking our impact to the next level, you will face these things. They're okay. They don't mean that anything's bad. It doesn't mean you're not capable. It just means the head trash is getting in your way, and it's time to learn how to override or move through when your mind is actively trying to convince you to do something else.
Well, to that point, Melanie, I think that it's really important for everyone to look at their own personal stories. And again, find those defining moments, because my big why, if you will, continues to motivate me even when I'm in fear. Like, my big story is that I want to heal all traumatized youth all over the world. And some days I think I'm completely crazy. And
you are, and that's why you succeed, right? You're crazy enough to do this.
Exactly. But when you're fueled by your passion, and when you return to that passion, then somehow the fear can melt away. Also, when you're in with a tribe of people that have big ideas, it's also about being vulnerable, about me being able to, I used to be really super competent, right? Don't anybody see me sweat. Now I have the vulnerability and the ability to be able to say, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. Or, hey, I need a little boost today, and not be the hero all the time. It's so important to have that tribe of people to lean into, not lean on, but lean into.
Lori, I have to say that was one of the most endearing things about when I met you is here you were, gracing us on the stage, sharing this powerful message. And in the time we spent together off stage, you were so vulnerable and so real. And I realized, like, this is beautiful. And this is what being a transformational leader is truly about, is surrendering into the not knowing and making that okay. Mm-hmm. I did not get that message growing up either, that you're supposed to surrender the ego and you don't have to know it all. And I definitely have lived in that story a lot. And I want to talk for a minute about ego, because you and I know what ego means, and maybe some of our participants here today are familiar with that term, but there may be people who don't really know when ego is trying to lead the charge versus being in that surrendered state. Can you maybe give us your example of how do I know if ego's, being the leader versus really being in our truth?
Right. Perfect. And so I guess I should say the negative ego, because there are parts of the positive ego, but not to make it complicated or Freudian. The negative ego is the part of us that would have us believe that we're separate, that we're alone, that we're the only ones going through this. And I have a really foolproof exercise for figuring out whether I'm in my ego or my heart. And when I'm in my ego, my body is contracted, my breathing is contracted. And when I'm in my heart, my body's relaxed, my heart is open, and my breathing is very expansive. So you can always tell whether you're in your ego or your heart based on what your body is telling you. And I would just ask people to do that once an hour for a couple of days, just to see where that lands them. And as I've been in situations, as you can imagine, in Rwanda and Sandy Hook, where I'm faced with circumstances that are far beyond my knowing what to do, I literally just breathe into my heart and I ask, what is needed here? And I have never been left unprepared when I do that. But when I'm in my ego, I cannot hear and the guidance. So this is a profound technique that works really well for me.
Yeah, I love that. And I use the contraction versus expansion as well. And one other way that at least is a sign for me that I've gone into my ego is I feel like I have to prove something, or I can't get it wrong. And the minute that part of me kicks in, I know, okay, ego's leading again. And maybe there are times when that has value, but especially when I'm coaching or I'm doing transformation work and I'm holding a big space for a leader to step fully into their brilliance, you have to get the ego out of the way. So I was just curious, what your process was. And so, I think one of the things we're saying here is that when you truly want to have a transformational impact, you are playing a really big game and you want to get your message out in the biggest way possible, you can surrender the ego and you can achieve things that you never even knew were possible. You don't always have to know what and how.
Right. And it's being comfortable surrendering, which most people think surrendering is like giving up. But I think of it as giving into my heart. And if my heart is connected to what I call the divine one heart, then that's my connection to conduiting greater information, greater transformation. And so I want to be in wonder about what's going to happen when I absolutely have no idea what the next step is.
Yes. Curiosity and wonder, it's such a powerful state to be in. And even like what we're talking about here as transformation, out in the world, think about the transformation that happens internally when we're curious and in wonder, instead of judgmental or harsh with ourselves or beating ourselves up to accomplish something that we haven't done yet, right? Like there's so much judgment that we drive inwards. And then think about the impact we might even have in our own nuclear family. Change doesn't always have to be out there in a big way. Oftentimes the most important work we do is on ourselves and our nuclear families. Because as we all know, many of the tragedies that occur because some young person grew into a limited belief about themselves. And I know that, wherever we start, however we take on transformation work that, or the grace process, starting right here with us is probably the single most important thing we do.
It's so true. And that leads me to, another important point, which is a lot of people compare themselves to me and say, oh, I'm not doing as much as you are in the world. And to me, we are all doing our great work in the world when we are in service to our own healing first. Healing our own wounds and our own trauma allows us to be present to what is more of our destiny to be served. And so everyone, whether your job is to be a mother of one or simply even whatever your job is, when you beam your heart through that, that is your work in the world, and that is powerful. And so, if every parent was healed, if every bus driver was healed, if every, young person was healed, as is my goal, imagine what the world would be like if everyone had the healing that I'm seeking. Then this would be a perfect world. And that's what we're in service to right now. So,
yeah.
Very,
and here's what I believe right now, the world needs us to do our healing work. Our world's in pain. We have so many places that are hurting, and there's violence, and there's a lot of wounds being activated over and over and over again. And so if there's no bigger why, if you don't have your own personal why, let's just say by you stepping fully into being that influencer and really getting your gift out in a bigger way meant you could help one person who helped one person who helped one person, then we've got this ripple where we can actually create change. We can actually start to be positive influencers, a force for good, if you will. And Lori, I believe that's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about your work, is I think this is one of the ways that we can actually create and be a force for good.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And as I said in the beginning, there are many things that are competing for our attention. I call it ADOSO, attention deficit shiny object.
Okay.
There are,
I shortened that to bright shiny objects, but okay, go ahead.
there are many, well, that's the therapy world.
Yes.
There are many shiny objects competing for our attention. There are many injustices, and that's not to make light of the injustices, but that we always need to return to ourselves first. What is the thing that I can do, instead of judging? Like we have a ripe political situation going on in the country, and it's ripe for us to externalize the blame and the judgment and all of that, when we need to find peace in our hearts first, and to see the potential for healing, and see the potential for what can we do to create peace in our hearts, so we can create peace in our families and our communities and our world.
Yes, I'm a big yes to that one. Does anyone else want to put that out right now? It's like, that's a big yes. Let's create peace in our hearts, peace in our families, peace in our communities, and be an active force for peace in the world. I know you guys probably have some questions, and Lisa, I know you asked a question early on. We will come back to that. I just want to take a second to say thank you for being here. And if you're not yet a Women's Speakers Association member, this is a very powerful community. We are committed to giving you the confidence, the tools, and the collaborative support to get your message out in a big way. And this is just one of the ways that we showcase our members here. And so I invite you to join us on joinwsa.com. And if you are an associate member and you would like to create more visibility for yourself, check out the Premier level membership. It's very affordable, and you have so many great opportunities to be showcased with it. And let us help you spread your message in a bigger way. So I want to ask you a couple more questions, Lori, and then we're going to open up for some Q&A. So if you're thinking about some questions, you can start posting them, and just put the Q and a / in front of your question, and that will pop into my radar for me. So Lori, I want to get into some advice. And there are people here who are going to listen now and listen later, because this will be available for replay. You can listen to it over and over and over again. What advice would you have for those of us who have this deep, driving passion to help others and heal our world?
Truly, it seems like a simple answer, but it's really about healing our own wounds first.
Yes.
And so you must do a deep dive into what your own traumas are, what your own wounds are, in order to be able to be fully present to the people you're serving. And I've seen this on many levels, but you yourself, Melanie, I know you as a transformational coach, you do the same thing. We look at our own issues first so that we can be fully present to the people we're serving. And I cannot stress that enough. And it seems like we're all looking for, oh, let's take that workshop, or let's read that book, or let's, do that thing that's going to give me more knowledge. But it's not about the knowledge. It's about the healing place inside of me. And how do I find peace in my heart? And how do I know when I'm being triggered? Like you mentioned in terms of wanting to know all the answers and
yes.
Perfect coach. How does it feel not to know? And is that okay? And how does that make you a better coach because of that? Because your ego is not in the way. So that's my number one piece of advice.
Yeah. And again, it goes back to, if you want to help others, you have to get yourself grounded and aligned and powered up first. And so I love that advice, that we've got to first do our own work. And, you talk about wounds and the triggers. In my work, and I've been mentoring thought leaders and change makers for 15 years now, I will say the number one reason why somebody doesn't achieve their goals is getting triggered. And they fall into the dark spiral of their self-worth and doubts and fears and worries and feeling disconnected, or maybe even their moral compass is feeling triggered in some way, because the beliefs they hold are not big enough to match the work they're called to do. And so if you do nothing else in this world, say yes to doing the inner work, get yourself grounded, use the grace process, find a way to clear out and get clear. What are your triggers? Because the moment we're conscious about them, right, Lori, then you can respond differently and not go into the dark spiral. You can actually do something constructive with that trigger instead of allowing yourself to get derailed from your goals.
Right. And really the trick is also to be in wonder about the triggers. I want to appreciate the fact that I'm being triggered right now, because that gives me the opportunity to step out of it and to be in my heart. So how quickly can we find the humor? How quickly can we find the grace in being triggered, and where that can lead us? So it's not about, oh, I failed. It's about, I'm human. And I'm capable of every human thought, behavior, and emotion, just like everyone else is. So, I just say, oh, thank you so much for that contraction, because it helps me remind me to be in my heart.
Yeah. And let's just briefly talk about contrast for a minute, because I think it's so important in what you're bringing to us right now is, what is contrast and what's the purpose of contrast, in the sense that we want to experience this beautiful thing over here, but we might be having so much of the opposite. And like, how am I creating so much of the not, like what I didn't want?
Right.
How is that important in this journey and into healing ourselves?
Well, I mean, it is the human condition. And if you buy into the notion that we chose to separate from the divine and incarnate into this contrast, this duality of separation, so that we could find our way back to our own divinity and to the divine in the world, that's the path. And the contrast, again, with humor and some grace, we find the wonder in, what is this teaching me? What is the opportunity here? And because I have asked to heal my wounds, I'm being given the contrast. And so if I can find the honor in that, and again, the humor, you've got to have a sense of humor.
Yes. Lightness of being.
Exactly. That's the most important thing, is instead of getting lost in the nightmare, what is the opportunity here? What am I learning? And it's hard to say, but if I can say in Rwanda and Newtown, what do you want more than your grief and your trauma? If I can ask that question to people who have experienced the worst of human tragedies, and they have an enthusiastic, I want peace in my heart and peace in my country, peace in my community, then who are we to stay stuck in the nightmare?
Yeah, I'm getting the chills. That is such a profound thing, concept and principle for us to work with, and to remember that there's something that can be bigger and better than the pain we're feeling. And if we can connect emotionally to, I'd rather have this, and do the work to clear out the pain and move towards that other, very profound. So Lori, I'm going to open up for Q&A here in a minute. And so here's how Q&A works. I'm going to unlock the seat here, and you can jump in if you're a Premier member and ask Lori some questions live, or you can post them in the chat here on the side. And just remember, put a /Q or Q/ in front of it, and then that'll post up as a question. And this is your time to find out how you can really unleash your own greatness in the world with the grace process. So Lori, I know you're going to be having a webinar soon where you're going to go deeper into how the grace process works. You're going to actually create some very powerful activations for people who do have a deep commitment to do greater work, but they feel like maybe they're blocked on some level. Can we just explain a little bit about where that is, how they can register for it, when it is, and what they're going to learn?
Yes. So on August 18th, Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific time, we are going to have an interactive Zoom session on 5 steps to heal your hidden wounds so you can activate your highest destiny for greater impact in the world. And we'll do a deep dive into the GRACE process and some of these activation systems that can help you with that. It's at LoriLeyden.com/grace. You can register. So that's LoriLeyden.com/grace. It's a free live webinar. And we would love to have as many people on that call as possible. And just another opportunity to do a deeper dive into what we've been talking about today.
Yeah, I know a little bit about what you're going to be teaching, and I'm very excited about it because, again, any chance we get to do the work and clean out the inside is a powerful opportunity. So, looks like Lisa is going to jump in and ask her question that I was just going to go and get. So welcome, Lisa Mannion, part of the one of our premier members at Women's Speaker Association and part of the leadership team here.
Hey!
Hey, Lisa. So glad you're here.
Yeah, it's so great to be here. It's such a pleasure to see both of you live. I love this connectivity, and it was so fun to hear more about your GRACE process because I'm so impressed with all the work that you're doing in the world, Lori. And as I'm on my own healing journey, I think we all are, one of my big questions to you is, what is your favorite or best resource for tapping? I want to learn more about that.
Excellent. Well, in the webinar, we'll be talking more about how to use tapping. And there are lots of great resources. There's the tappingsolution.com. There's EFTuniverse.com. The important thing to know about tapping is that it's a great self-care resource, but it's also, if you find a practitioner, if you have some deep wounds, some deep trauma, if you find a certified practitioner, you can really do a deep dive, and it's an elegant, graceful way to heal traumas. Oftentimes we hear people say, 20 years of therapy, in one session of tapping, they can clear what they haven't been able to do with other sources of therapy. So the reason tapping is so profound is because it combines a somatic release, and trauma is a brain dysfunction that needs to have a therapeutic system that deals with the brain. And so tapping allows us to release the fight, flight, freeze response in the brain that keeps us frozen in those traumas. So
oh, that makes sense. Yeah, thank you. And I'm excited that you're going to touch on that in the webinar as well. I'd like to catch that and learn a little more. I think the more tools we have, the better we can step into what it is that we're truly meant to do. So thank you both for sharing your wisdom today. And it was just I was just hanging on every word because I was so resonating on such a deep level. And I thought, here are my people. This is beautiful.
I knew you would love it, Lisa. I'm so glad you got to be here. Anytime we're a catalyst for greatness, having great tools is part of what we get addicted to, right? In a good way.
It really is. And I am familiar with tapping a bit, and I've played with it a little. However, it seems to me like it's one of those tools in the toolkit that I forget to pull out and practice regularly. So when you talked about practicing and putting things into action, that really made a lot of sense to me. And I thought, maybe I better just refresh those resources and see what Lori has to say about this to keep me or to get me back on track.
Well, and think about it. It's right at your fingertips at every moment of the day. And so for those of you who want to explore it, this is something that you can do very easily and simply throughout the day to just reset your physiology and get those endorphins flowing. So that's why I love it.
Beautiful. Well, I'm going to hop off and let someone else hop in. And so great to see both of you. Thank you so much for everything you're both doing in the world. And I'm so glad that we're all connected via Women's Speakers Association.
Me too. Thanks, Lisa. Thanks for jumping in. And thanks for all the work you do for us as well. All right. So if you have a question that you'd like to run by Lori or myself, again, a few people are like, I didn't know who that was in the host seat. I'm Melanie Benson. I'm a part of the executive leadership team, and I'm the host of the WSA Women of Influence show. It's very exciting to bring these just extraordinary influencers into our community and share their gifts with you. And Lori's also become a Women's Speakers Association Premier member, so you'll be able to connect with her around the block. But I highly recommend that if you are resonating with Lori's message today and you're knowing that you've got some great work to do, but maybe you're just a little bit blocked, join Lori for her webinar. I posted the link on the screen here. You can just click on the little box there. It says LoriLeyden.com, and you'll be taken right to the registration for the webinar. Yes, Deb, we do have such an amazing group, and I want to just call out a few people. Stephanie D'Alfonso, glad you're here. Welcome. And there was somebody else that joined in a little bit late that I wanted to say hi and welcome you. Oh, it was Laura Rubenstein. Laura's part of our leadership team here as well. And then Lori Ford. Lori, we've been so enjoying watching your comments along the way. Thanks so much for being here. Deb Coleman, who is just one of our rock star team members. And actually, Deb's been helping finessing a lot of the languaging. She's one of our awesome copywriters. All right. So actually, I guess she's not really a copywriter. She's a messaging expert. Let me get that right. And then Althea is here from Female Executive Magazine. Welcome. We're really super glad to have you here as well. So again, if you would like to join Lori, you can go to LoriLeyden.com. It's LEYDEN.com/grace. And I want to let you know about a couple of shows coming up. We here at WSA have a show every week here on Blab. And we have a theme a week, so you'll always find great ways to connect with everybody. Next week, Marquesa Petway is hosting How to Pitch Your Speaking with Sylvia Henderson. She's one of our premier members. So every month we're spotlighting one of our premier members who have a great resource or tool that can help you grow your impact and your income as a speaker and messenger. And then the last Thursday of the month on July 20th, we do something really, really cool. We have virtual networking. This is a powerful opportunity to make connections all over the world. And this month, it's being hosted by our leadership team members, Carrie Hagen-Smith and Deb Coleman. So mark your calendar. We're always at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. And we really invite you to come get active, start building the new connections with people who can help open doors for you. And let's make a commitment to raise our influence, own our brilliance on this planet, get the stuff out of the way that is maybe been derailing us, or it's causing you to get triggered and not take the actions that you could be taking, and to get present with what your truth really is. So Lori, as we kind of get into our final moments here, let's just talk a little bit about how we might know that there is a wound that's getting us triggered. What's a sign that we've got stuff in the way of our dream?
Well, I think it goes back to the contractions, the ego. How much time do we spend in our stories? What is your story, your ego story? Like, I had a soul myth that was, love isn't safe, dreams don't come true, and you'll never have the resources to fulfill your destiny. That was a story that played out. So find your story. And it played out in very kind of subtle ways and very big ways. So how much time do you spend in your story versus in your heart? That's a big clue. And what are the conversations you're having with yourself in your head? Are you blaming yourself or other people? That's the place to really start.
Yeah. So recognizing our habitual thought patterns that we move through when we get an opportunity, or like I know people who, and I've worked with clients who have they just can't take the action to make the phone call, or they let the fear of what the experience is going to be like be so big that they don't do the thing that would actually get them the result they want, more money, more impact, being able to get their gift out in the world. So it's just being aware when that feels bad and you're not doing the thing you could do.
And you can convince yourself of many different reasons why you're not making that phone call. Yeah. So that's why you need to clear those triggers, because it's really usually much deeper than just like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. There's usually a bigger wound going on there. I'm not okay. I'm not worthy.
Yeah. And by the way, you've had that in your thought process for so long, it probably feels normal.
Right.
You know, in my Money DNA program, I'm teaching most of it mostly around money, but you know, we all have these stories that are so real to us. We think this is just the way it is. Don't you have that thought too? And when you start to pull it back and do this work, and you realize that belief is actually not serving you, that fear, that thought pattern, that paradigm of what's possible, and you can actually create a more aligned and powerful story that acts like a freeway that just puts you on the fast track to getting what you want. You really understand the power of doing this inner work.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what takes courage. That's what takes courage.
It does. It takes courage because, yes, you might get a little uncomfortable, but what's on the other side is so powerful and so liberating that, you know, if you understood what's possible when you clear out those bad stories that are holding you back, that limited thinking, you would never hold back from doing the inner work. It only hurts like a Band-Aid, right? It's just like taking a Band-Aid off. Okay, well, we're almost at the top of the hour. This is just, Lori, I'm just leaving so inspired today. You know, I've got another class to do later this afternoon, and I'm so glad that I'm moving into that class so inspired, so excited, and just, you know, just so in awe of who you are and the work that you're doing, and so honored to be a part of your journey. Do you have any last pieces of advice that you'd like to share with our community to inspire someone to really step fully into their gift?
Absolutely. Don't underestimate your passions. Don't underestimate who you are. Don't underestimate the yearning you have to make a difference, and follow your heart. Follow your heart. That's how we're going to do it. That's how we're going to create global healing. Yeah.
Follow your heart and really learn to listen to the heart and not always just the head. Because the head and the heart have got to be on the same page, right?
Right.
Well, thank you again so much for being here, to our women speakers community and to all of our friends who have joined in today. And I just want to remind you, if you not yet activated a free Women Speakers Association membership, we would love to have you join our community. Just go to joinwsa.com. And if you're already an associate member and you'd like to upgrade and be a premier member, we'd like to spotlight you. There's so many different ways that we can showcase you and your gifts, and not only just help you create some more visibility, but give you opportunities to collaborate with this powerful community of movers and shakers. I mean, there's just some great people in this community that are looking for you. So you can go to joinwsa.com, that same place, and choose the premier membership. And we're looking forward to getting to know you. All right, I'm MelanieBenson.com, Melanie Benson at MelanieBenson.com. And it's been such a pleasure to be your host today. And Lori, thank you again for sharing your heart with us and helping to alchemize such a beautiful gift in the world. All right, we'll see you guys all again next month. Bye for now.